It's Beer O'Clock on Real Ale Craft Beer, October 2021. Lidl have brought out a load of new beers. This is from Stewart Brewing Company. It's called State Trooper. It's an American Pale Ale coming in at 5% ABV, 42 IBUs. Now, I've liked some of the beers from the Lidl Craft Beer Festival, certainly the Stewart Brewing Company beers. So without further ado, let's get this beer out into a glass and see what we get. Pale Ale. Yeah, let's go with this nice looking glass here. American Pale Ale, yeah, you're going to get that kind of definite American amber coloured beer. This is reminiscent of something like a Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, maybe slightly darker. We got a 1 to 2 finger white head, good levels of carbonation. The beer come in at £1.49 for a 440 millilitre can. I think that's a pretty decent price for an American Pale Ale. So Lidl, very briefly, very quickly, they do beer festivals now about 3 or 4 times a year. They've been doing them now for the last 2 years. They trialled the first one 2 years ago and it went down an absolute scream with beer lovers around the UK. And they've just kind of built it up. They built this beer festival up to where they're doing 3 or 4 a year now. They're very popular. So it's a big anticipation because of course they send out that Lidl magazine, don't they? Where you pick it up in store or you have the app, which I have, and you can see what's coming. So they build it up over the week, they show you what's coming, and all us beer lovers get to run out and pick these beers up and stick them on YouTube. Let's get the aroma then on this amber coloured beer with a little bit of haze going on. Slow moving carbonation. Yeah, it smells pretty juicy. A little bit of tangerine coming through. Spiciness, pepperiness. So far, pretty impressive for that £1.49 price point. Let's dive in. Cheers, everybody. Ooh. Ooh, right. First of all, I'm going to come out and say it. To produce a can of craft beer, I remember when I brewed Barry Island IPA with Brains all the way back in 2012. And I was desperately trying to get Brains Brewery to put the beer in the can. I was saying, look guys, can is the next big thing. It's going to happen. It's going to be massive. If we stick it in can, we could literally leapfrog so many breweries in the UK, and this could be like the #1 IPA in the whole of the UK. Because when it first came out, it was brilliant. It was brilliant beer. And they said to me, look, it costs a fortune. It costs an absolute fortune to stick beer in a can, especially a 330 millilitre can, which was fashionable at that kind of 2012, 2013 time. And they chose against it because of cost. And it's a bit of a shame. It's a bit of a shame because it could have completely changed the whole face of that brewery. So that beer, even in 2012, used to retail for about £2.50 a bottle. So you imagine now that price point we were talking about putting beer in cans being quite expensive. I know there's a lot of canning machines now in the UK. I know there's a lot of people canning craft beer, and you know there's a lot of businesses set up doing it. And the price has come down to put beer in cans. But to produce a pale ale, an American pale ale for £1.49, it's a pretty difficult thing to do. So you can imagine then, and this is the kind of long story short bit, you can imagine then that I'm tasting quite a lot of malt, which I am doing, but they've tried their best to put a kind of an American pale ale hop presence in there. They've tried to get that kind of orange peel, that fleshy blood orange, that grapefruit. They've tried their best with that kind of price point. I don't think it's a bad beer, to be honest. all things considered for the price. It's very balanced, very balanced, very malty, a really biscuity, malty brew with a bitter kind of orange peel back end. It's actually quite nice. I can imagine this is what bitter tasted like back in the 1800s in the UK. That bitter style, where it was bitter on the back end, but it was malty to begin with. Bitter's been completely kind of ruined by the regional brewers in the UK, where they're nothing. They're barely bitter anymore. They're just malty beers that are called bitter for some strange reason. Sweet malty beers that are still called bitters, best bitters, and cream flows and smooth flows and whatever else the regional brewers have decided to do with them. So this is what I think a bitter might have tasted like back in the 1800s. Very malty, very biscuity and bready, with a bitter back end and some stinging nettle and orange peel flavour maybe. But I do worry, because I did the unboxing video and I had quite a few comments, people coming in saying, look, I've already tried these beers and none of them, I had a couple of comments where people were saying none of them are very good. And that worries me, because I know Stewart Brewing Company can make some pretty decent beer. I fully understand why Stewart Brewing Company are producing beers for Lidl, because it's a chance to get their beer throughout the UK, and it's a chance to get their name out there. It's almost like free advertising for Stewart Brewing Company. So they choose to kind of go down that road of producing. It's barely an American pale ale. It's barely an American pale ale. I can imagine some people who have drank really good Stewart Brewing Company beers over the years going, this is just not great. What I'm trying to do is balance that price point, balance that £1.49 price point with the fact that that is so cheap for a beer these days. How can you possibly brew an American pale ale for that money and can it and distribute it? It's madness. I wouldn't be surprised if Stewart Brewing Company made a loss on this beer. They just wanted to do it for advertising reasons. So I'm going to rate it. Not the best American pale ale I've ever tried, but it's certainly not the worst. I quite like it as a best bitter, even though it's not meant to be a best bitter, so we can't rate it as a best bitter. I think I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. I think it's a very fair rating, a 6 out of 10. It's not making me jump for joy, but the price point is exceptional for the beer that you get in your glass. 6 out of 10 from Real Ale Craft Beer. Please put your comments in the comments box, subscribe to our daily beer and food reviews, give us a big fat thumbs up. Boom! Cheers!